watching Liquid Lunch on Newsmax TV, joined by two of our favorites, two men who are very passionate about the issues in the news and very informed, which is very rare on television. Richard Bay on the left, Manny Alicandro on the right. Gentlemen, let me ask you about Joe Biden's candidacy. Manny predicted that he would ultimately pull it out as the Democratic nominee. He was on his No Malarkey tour over the weekend, and he spent some time nibbling on his wife's finger. Let's have a look at this.
When they cut to the President of the United States.
That's a little weird. Can we get a little weird?
Before we get started, I just want everyone to know that Alan Wolfson is the president of my fan club, and I want to thank him for all the hard work that he's done during the course of this show.
So for people that don't get, so Richard, I promoted that he was coming on.
Don't even explain.
And this guy says, among other things, that Richard is not in any way representative of the Jewish people. So Richard, sorry, we're no longer having you on as our liaison to the Jewish community.
I'm not a representative. I thought, isn't Trump the king of Jerusalem? Isn't that what they're promoting these days?
He's Trump obsessed. Trump obsessed. There you go. Yeah. Do you have Trump derangement syndrome?
No,
is that what's going on?
But there are people who are saying now that Trump is the king of Jerusalem.
I think it's just person that said it. I think it's
Who
just
said it?
Wayne Allen Root, who we like, who's on this network.
I thought Mark Levin said it.
Oh, I missed it. Yeah. I missed it. Joe Biden nibbling Dr. Joe Biden's finger. Appropriate, not appropriate?
Listen, I thought Joe Biden would be a good candidate. Disappointingly, he is not. He is a person, it reminds me of Reagan in his final days. In fact, when we talk about impeachment, what I remember is 14 members of the Reagan administration were indicted for criminal activities. And in the end, Reagan came on TV and said, I know I told you 2 months ago that I didn't know anything about this deal, but my heart and my memory tells me that I didn't. But the facts say that I did. I mean, that's, to me, I feel sorry for the guy.
But never nibbled on Nancy's finger.
I think that is weird. I will categorize that as weird behavior. But nonetheless, if you look at all of the mistakes that he's made. He made some weird comment about having hairy legs yesterday when he was a kid.
Yeah, we played that before the show. We thought that would be a little creepy even for our audience.
It is. It's super creepy, and that's my point. Other things that would be disqualifying at a minimum for other candidates haven't really seemed to hurt him in his fundraising and his polling. So essentially, he's become Teflon.
Yeah. And you can say the same thing about Donald Trump, who has said many weird things.
That's for sure. All right. Well, let me ask you, though, so as a political issue, right, Joe Biden has not called for abolishing private health insurance. Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, as part of their single-payer plan, they do want to abolish private health insurance. If you're a traditionally Democratic household, a union household, kind of in a purple state, isn't that a message that's going to be tough to sell?
No, but it's going to, yes. But it's not going to be tough to sell Medicare for all who want it, which is the Pete Buttigieg plan, which allows private health insurance to be your choice if you want it. You can buy it if you want. You could use your union employer health insurance that you already have and keep it. Or, if you prefer, you can buy into Medicare.
So, Manny, as a Trump supporter, are you fearful of a Mayor Pete matchup?
I'm not worried about it at all. I think Trump could easily beat Mayor Pete.
But, all right. Well, so speaking of Trump, he's heading to London today for the NATO
summit.
Is there
any Democrat who could beat Trump?
Potentially. I think Biden has a slim chance. Biden has a slim chance because of the fundraising.
Well, what about Mike Bloomberg with his appeal to for Republicans and independents and all his
I don't know how
money.
Bloomberg gets momentum behind him without participating in the debates. I mean, if you look at Obama early in 2007 and 2008, there was a lot of momentum behind him in terms of winning. You win the caucus in Iowa, you go forward, and you go to New Hampshire and you go to South Carolina. There's a lot of forward momentum. If you don't participate in those, you spend a bunch of money. Maybe you'll hurt Trump in reputation or whatever. Maybe
the president's heading to London, Manny, for the NATO summit. What do you want to hear come out of the NATO summit?
I think Trump needs to be tough, right? I think he needs to be tough at this meeting. One, in terms of NATO funding. Two, in terms of, look what's going on with Turkey. I mean, we really need to clarify that. There's a lot of problems now with Turkey.
What do you want him to do about Turkey?
I have big issues with Turkey and Syria. I absolutely do. I think we need to make sure that, when we're involved in a military campaign, we don't just say, we're out, I made a campaign promise, we're out, and we're done. I think we need to kind of think things through and be very careful how we move forward. I also think there's tensions between Turkey and Macron, the French president. I think we need to be careful with that in terms of how we get involved with all that. So NATO's a very important situation for Trump to deal with right now and not be distracted with this impeachment.
I know, but Trump lifted the sanctions against Turkey, and Trump has made excuses for the killing of Khashoggi. Trump.
Well, those are the Saudis.
Oh, yeah, that's
Saudis,
the Saudis,
right? Yeah,
excuse me. Yeah. But and Turkey was involved in it as well, but because they supposedly have the tapes of what happened. But you're right. I missed.
So, Richard, one of the reasons that I always am so eager to hear your take on things is because you're sort of an honest broker. You voted for Bob Dole. You voted for Ralph Nader. You didn't vote for.
I voted for Ross Perot. I voted for Giuliani twice.
Yeah. So, given that
Rick Lazio, I voted for.
You're not a blind partisan.
Right.
What would you like to see Trump do at this NATO summit in London?
Nothing, because he's not capable of doing anything.
Okay. Right.
He's not capable of unifying anybody.
But if he was capable, in your opinion, I'm not saying he's not capable. I think he's very capable.
I think if he was capable, if someone wrote him a speech where he reinforced the importance of the long-lasting NATO alliance and commitments, its importance in the world, if he came forward and brought the alliance together and pledged to support its future, unhesitatingly, its future existence. Yeah, that would.
And if you look at the recent bombing in London, I mean, we have to be really careful.
Bombing?
And the stabbing in London, and there were reports over the weekend of bombings which were denied by the news media and by the British government.
They happened?
Well, but we don't know. My point is that there's a fear of terrorism that is gripping Europe right now. Clearly, there was an issue of terrorism at The Hague as well. So we need to be careful. We cannot be complacent.
Terrorism.
We cannot be complacent.
That was not terrorism. That was a homeless person. The Hague was not terrorism.
We can't
read the report.
We cannot be complacent. We are vulnerable to terrorist acts in the world.
And why? Did you hear what happened in New Jersey the other day? They discovered these white supremacist neo-Nazis who had 18 guns, they had grenade launchers, they had neo-Nazi material. Here, the great threat is domestic violence. It's like the Trump supporter in the van who was sending out pipe bombs
There's plenty
to
of
people.
left-wing political
but
violence
there's not very much Islamic violence. There's a hell of a lot of white supremacist neo-Nazi violence. What? You're denying it?
Look, I think at the end of the day, we need to be cognizant. We need to be
type
vigilant.
It into your Google, and you'll see. What we're doing is our law enforcement is doing a great job of uncovering it before it takes place.
All right, let me ask you this, Richard. I'd hoped to touch upon Iran, but we'll have to save that for the next time you come on the show. You're in New York. I know you came up to pick up your giant $1,000 check from John Tobacco.
No, I didn't.
Because of the bet that you won with respect to James Comey not being in jail yet.
Right. Not only is he not in jail, but the IG report is going to come out and say,
well, we'll see what it says.
There was no political bias.
What did you spend the Tobacco $1,000 on?
First of all, I wouldn't take it from John because John was very generous to me at a time when I needed generosity. So I would just take that generosity and apply it to the bet.
All right. Well, John, I will take your $1,000 that you've already had the check written out for Richard. I'll buy dinner. All the four of us will go to dinner with that $1,000. All right. You're watching Liquid Lunch on Newsmax TV. Richard Bay and Manny Alicandro, thank you. I hope you both come back soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. You were very good.
When we come back, we'll do something completely different. Find out what it is next. You're watching Newsmax TV.